is Roslynn Nyanhongo, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and covenant crisis therapist at Living Water Family Therapy in Round Rock, Texas. And you are watching Living Water for Real Life, where I sit with women in the deep end of real life and integrate faith and evidence-based therapy to help them to move forward. Before we jump in, please subscribe and leave a heart or a wave in the comment section so I know that you're here, and share with another woman who needs a little bit of living water in her real life. Hello. Today we're going to be talking about back to school, which I know is a very busy time of year for a lot of people. And so we are going to be talking about how to go back to school without burning out. Whenever school starts back up, there are a lot of routines that start back up too. And making sure that kids go to bed on time, that there's food in lunchbox, backpacks are packed, everybody has what they need, and ultimately even getting their own time. And then after that, then it's bringing kids back home, homework, and the whole routine starts over again. So how do you do this well without burning out, especially whenever you have other things that you have to do too? So let's talk about it. And today's episode is going to be based off of the scripture, Psalms 90, verse 12, which says, "Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom." And so, how we tie this into the topic of back to school is realizing that we have a certain number of days on this earth, right? And even in school. And so, whenever we're in this time with our kids, being intentional about the things that they're doing while they're in school, so that school is not just so that school does not just feel like a rat race. It's something that can be enjoyed not just by you but also by your child, and then that way they can also find adequate time for rest and for learning, so that way they can still function outside of school. One thing that I would like to talk about is the burnout setup. So I hear a lot of people say that whenever they get back to school, then the routines and the activities start up again. And yes, everybody loves summer because summer gives a nice break, but there gives an opportunity during summer for rest and relaxation and a bit more leeway as far as getting things done. Whereas whenever the kids are in school, there's a structured routine for getting everything done in an appropriate amount of time before bedtime. And so whenever you number your days and whenever you decide what you're going to say yes to and what you're going to say no to, it allows for an opportunity to be very intentional with that time, and also create structure around and boundaries around your child's time and your energy and your time as well. Um, One example that comes to mind is extracurricular activities. Um, Whenever kids have extracurricular activities, then I hear parents saying, "Oh, well, one kid is going here, one kid is going here, one kid is doing," and it's chaos because that's not sustainable long term. Um, and also, not only is it difficult for the parents to run all the kids everywhere they need to be, but it also drains the kids because not only do they not get time for rest, but then they also have this expectation on them to where it's like they still have to do their schoolwork, extracurricular, and make time for friends and church and whatever else they have going on. And over time, that can be exhausting and lead to burnout. So let's reframe that a little bit. That home life is your first ministry and not the school calendar. Meaning that whenever you take time to be intentional about your time and number your days and decide at the beginning of the school year what you're going to say yes to versus what you may not be able to say yes to, then it creates an opportunity for rest and for reflection and growth as well. And so I encourage you to maybe pick one activity that you allow your child to do, and then allow them to focus on that outside of school and not plan a whole bunch of activities outside of that. I tell my clients that whenever they are being pulled in multiple directions, yes, you have a lot going on, but you're not able to do any one thing particularly well. And that is true. And I know that whenever maybe you have a child that struggles with perfectionism, or maybe you even struggle with perfectionism, which is needing things to be done right the first time and not allowing any sort of leeway for things to fluctuate or to go wrong, that can lead to low self-esteem and even depression and burnout. And that's not something that you want. Um, and so I'm talking to the first time parents who maybe your kid is starting kindergarten. I'm talking to the parents whose kids who have been doing this year after year, and maybe your kid is starting middle school. And I'm even talking to the high school parent who is maybe getting ready to send a child off to college next year, that is starting to look at colleges and universities and things like that. All of these things can be times for reflection. And so um, I just want to encourage you to take one practical step and ask yourself, what is one practical boundary that my family can implement this school year to try to make sure that the kids are well taken care of and that also I'm taken care of? For example, maybe deciding on one thing that that is a non-negotiable in the household, meaning we all sit down and have dinner once or twice a week to check in. If you can do it more than that, great. But I encourage parents, particularly with middle school and high school students, to have that time that they're sitting down with their kid and they're having a meal and taking time to be intentional about the relationship. Whenever you take time to have family dinners with your child, particularly around that middle school and high school age, it creates an opportunity to help foster and encourage a deeper relationship. Because whenever a child is going through that adolescent stage, they're trying to figure out who they are as an individual, and also they feel like that they want to also be independent and maybe don't want to have as much of parent input per se, but that doesn't mean that you're not a very important part of their decision making. And that does not mean that your influence does not matter to them. Studies have shown that parents' influence is just as important as it is for a elementary school student as it is for a high school student. So I encourage you to make that time to be with your kid, to check in with your kid, even if it's just whenever you're riding in the car, if you have a younger kid that you're dropping off and picking up after school, checking in and saying, hey, how was your day? Tell me what you did today. What did you learn? Who did you talk to? Who are your friends right now? And trying to really get involved in their world. Um, that's really important, because whenever things do come up, they're more likely to feel safe enough to come to you whenever things do get difficult or whenever they do need additional support. um, because I find that, particularly with working with teens, um, they have a hard time coming to parents whenever they feel like that their parent is too busy or maybe not as interested in what they have going on. So um, I just wanted to encourage you and let you know that your kids do care and they still love you, and you do have influence over your child. Um, Another boundary I want to ask you to think about is pre-decide this school year, what are you going to say yes to and what are you going to say no to? Meaning, um, it's not feasible to be everywhere all the time. And it's not feasible for your kids either. So I encourage you, maybe instead of doing all of the after school activity, maybe just pick one. Just pick one. And then allow them to do that and allow them to thrive in that. Allow them to create friends in that versus feeling like that they have to do every single activity that's offered at the school. And maybe over the weekend, instead of having things every weekend, because that also links to burnout, maybe you can have maybe one thing that y'all do maybe once a month or something, so that way there's still time for rest and there's also time for personal reflection and time to go to church and do the other things that you need to do without feeling like that you never get a break. um, and also protect the anchors at home, which is, making your home a safe, calm space. Whenever you're at home, maybe shut off TV at a certain time, maybe put cell phones away so that way there's time for intentional family time. Another thing I encourage families to do, particularly with their younger kids, is being intentional about one-on-one playtime with your kid. I know that some of the schools have shorter recesses, so maybe making sure that your child is getting that outside time. Sunshine is a very important part of emotional wellness, and so whenever you take time to go outside and get that vitamin D, that can help with learning and growth, and even with feeling rested whenever you allow your child and even you to burn off some good energy during the day, so that way whenever it's time to go to bed, you're able to have restorative, restful sleep. Um, and then a quick word to the mamas and the parents right here. Be intentional about your relationship, be intentional about your marriage. um you know Plan date night during the school year. It's very important to focus on the relationship that you're in, and in the marriage, because whenever mom and dad are stable, then the kids also feel secure. And, if you are in a season where things are difficult with you and your spouse or your partner, then reach out, ask for help. You can reach out to a therapist like myself, or you can reach out to a church pastor, or just talk to someone that can help give you positive, loving guidance. Um, and then a gentle reflection question to close is, thinking about last year, what are some things that you maybe did say yes to that you wish that you didn't? Um, and how can you protect your time this year? Maybe what are some things that happened last year that you would like to reframe and learn from this year? And also, um, think about too, what is God inviting you into this year? What does spiritual growth look like for you? What does it look like for your family? And how can you usher your family towards that? Whenever you talk about back to school, I know that a lot of things can come up. So I was I was thinking about yesterday whenever I took my daughter to school. Um, for the first time. She's about to start kindergarten, and it's like I was looking at all these people, and I was like, there is just so much going on here. And there was a mom that was kind of weepy. There was someone that was seemed like a bit nervous. There was somebody else who was angry. There was a lot of different things going on in this one little elementary school, and I'm just like, wow. um, so I just want to remind you that it's okay for things to be a little chaotic, until they settle down. And, if you are feeling the feelings of a first time parent sending your child to school, and maybe you do feel a bit sad, or you do feel a bit disappointed because maybe you wanted to homeschool, or maybe you're excited that your child is growing up, whatever feeling you're feeling, it's okay. And there's room in their space for that. And also allow your child to feel those things too. um, I think that as parents, it's easy to get overwhelmed with the things that we have going on in our lives, that sometimes we forget that our children are tiny humans too that have very big emotions. And sometimes it's very difficult for them to express those emotions. And yes, we would like to think that it gets easier for them as they get older, but that's not necessarily true. Emotion regulation and management are things that have to be taught. And just because someone is older does not mean that they have those skills. I can't tell you how many times I have been in this office and been working with somebody who is either in their 20s or their 30s, and they say, "Oh, well, I didn't know that was what it was," because they didn't have language to name what it was they were feeling. Because there are way more emotions than just happy, sad, and angry. And I think that whenever we forget about that and don't hold space for all those other things that can come up, it can make it really difficult to express yourself appropriately and fully, and to even feel fully seen, um, whenever you're even trying to interact and express yourself. So I just want to offer that gentle reminder that it's okay for you to be feeling whatever you're feeling, and it's also okay for your child to feel whatever they feel. And maybe even acknowledging, hey, I feel that too. You know, it's okay that we feel this. We're going to get through this together. And that's what's important, because remember, we are better together. And if this episode landed for you, if it hit home, if it felt like, yeah, this is me, and I feel like I'm seen, then let me know. Let me know in the comments. Um, and I also wanted to let y'all know that this podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. And just type in Living Water for Real Life, and share this episode with another woman who needs a little bit of living water, so that way we can share the word and we can spread it. And I thank you for sharing this time with me. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. If today's topic was helpful for you and you would like to learn more about working with me in person or virtually at my Round Rock office, visit www.livingwaterfamilytherapy.com. See you there.